So good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Cook. Sorry it took so long to finally get this video together. As I said, I did not have my laptop with me, and my computer at school doesn't have a microphone. So the purpose of this video is to show you a little bit about some introductions. I'm going to show you introductions of an exemplification essay, talk about topic sentences, look at some paragraph structure, and also look at transitions. So in your exemplification essay, what you did was you looked at your major, and then you came up with 3 different career choices. So in the introduction, you want to begin each introduction with a little bit of background information. You also want to maybe establish why this is important to know. And lastly, you want to come up with some kind of thesis statement, some kind of thread that will carry throughout the entire paper. The last sentence of your introductory paragraph really is what we call the preview statement, in that you simply state the 3 areas that you are going to write about. So let's look at this first paper as an example. For around the last 100 years, psychology has sought to answer the question that many ask of their significant other or beloved children. Why would you do that? More specifically, it seeks to find the origins of all behavior, from complex to simple behavior. Unlike physical science, there is no linear formula for identifying the causes of behavior. It's far too complex of a subject to be explained within the confines of a singular idea or theory. It is for that reason that psychology has developed separate fields and theories for explaining behavior. Each of these fields is of equal significance regarding the explanation of human behavior, and none of them are without their faults. The 3 most prominent ways of explaining human behavior in psychology are through the branches of psychoanalysis, behaviorism, and biological. So if you look at this obviously is someone in human services. He's going into the field of psychology. So we have a little bit of background information about psychology, about the topic. Then kind of gives a reason why it's necessary to look at various types of branches of psychology. And then really the thesis is kind of in here, that it is an explanation of human behavior. So in every paragraph, every section of the paragraph of the paper is going to talk about them having an explanation of human behavior. The last sentence, of course, is the preview statement. And here again, you have the 3: psychoanalysis, behaviorism, and biological. So you want to concentrate in your introductions that you kind of do something very similar. We'll look at a couple other examples in a minute, but now I want to look at paragraph structure. So when you're structuring the paragraphs, you always want to have a topic sentence. So this is going to be, if this were the beginning of the paper, this is the next paragraph. The psychoanalytic presupposition is that most human behavior stems from unconscious drives. So he's talking about psychoanalysis, which is really the first topic, if you match it here. The rest of the paragraph talks about psychoanalysis and human behavior. The last sentence of the paragraph is where you want to concentrate as well, and you want to add a transition into the next section. So this would be his last section, or the last sentence of the paragraph. However, psychoanalysis isn't without its faults, and we see that in the beginning. He also talks about psychoanalysis, or them having faults. It isn't the most scientific field, and as a consequence, that leaves it with many behaviors it isn't capable of explaining. Much of the field's shortcomings can be mitigated by behaviorism. So we ended with talking about psychoanalysis not being a perfect field. We also then see here behaviorism, and believe it or not, the next section of his paper would be behaviorism, which is following the previous statement. So you want to make sure whatever order you have, just like in the last paper, whatever order you have in the previous statement, that's the order you want to follow in your paper. I'm going to upload this document once I'm done with the actual announcement. Let's look at a second example. The criminal justice field is doing its job protecting the communities as the violent crime rate has dropped in the last century. Now, this person used a source. You don't have to use sources in this. However, if you do, you need to cite it. In criminal justice, there are a plenty of jobs. There was a mistake there. There are plenty of jobs to choose from that some people may not even know about. Criminal justice has jobs that help police officers analyze data, gather evidence, and jobs that lead to solving crimes, even jobs that rehabilitate convicted felons. Criminologists, detectives, and parole officers each impact the criminal justice field, with each protecting and serving the community in their own way. So here again, we see in this paragraph, he introduces criminal justice. That's the general category. And then we have 3 jobs: criminologists, detectives, and parole officers. And what do? They analyze data. That's going to be your criminologists. They gather evidence. That's going to be your detectives. Lead to solving crimes is also detectives. And rehabilitate is parole officers. The thread that's going to follow each of the paragraphs and go throughout it is going to be protecting and serving the community. So let's look at the topic sentence of the first paragraph, or the first body paragraph. A criminologist is a person who protects and serves the community. So here we have him picking up on that idea again. By using data to try and figure out. So this is basically introducing what a criminologist does. The rest of the paragraph goes into details about education and salary, etc. The concluding sentence: criminologists, with their focus on data analysis, not only help the police in the field, but ultimately aid in preventing crimes and protecting the community around them. So that's the concluding sentence. There is no mention of the next section of the paper. So this person does it a little bit differently. In the next section, he actually refers back. Detectives use the analytical data provided by the criminologists to help inform their own investigation with the goal of solving crime. So again, you see this language coming in your paragraphs, and we always have a transition. So in that first paper, this person had a transition from going from the previous to the next. This person does it backwards. He goes from the current and mentions the past. In example 3, let's go over this one. Whenever one hears of the major biotechnology, it is coupled with a confused expression and ultimately followed up with the request to provide an explanation. Broadly speaking, biotechnology is the use of biological processes to create a product or solve a problem. There are many different subfields of biotechnology one could pursue as a career. Every subfield has its own educational requirements and a set of daily tasks. However, each contributes to improving humanity's quality of life by taking advantage of biological concepts and processes. For example, bioengineer, a bioinformatician, and a plant and soil scientist exploit biological organisms and systems in different ways to make positive contributions to society. Again, we have a really good introduction. We have some background about the topic. The thread or the thesis that's going to run through is that each contributes to improving humanity's quality of life. thereby positively contributing to society. The three jobs are mentioned here: bioengineer, bioinformatician, and plant and soil scientist. And he's even let you know that the educational requirements and set of daily tasks are going to be different, but you can tell that this is going to be mentioned in each section. So what I did for this paper is I didn't use the first paragraph, I used the second one. Or actually, I used the last one. So this topic sentence does a transition in a different way. Another potential career. So this is not the strongest transition. How they did it in the first two examples would be better, either transitioning into or referring back. But this is a transition and would count as a transition. Another potential career path in biotechnology would be to become a plant and soil scientist. All right, so that's your introduction. The rest of the paragraph is about that. And you'll see the concluding sentence in the paragraph. Plant and soil scientists typically work in food manufacturing, universities, and research facilities. Most scientists do field work, which includes visits to processing plants and farms. So this just kind of is a concluding sentence that ties up all of the loose ends. There is no transition because it is the last paragraph of the paper before the conclusion. And I'll give you one last example. This is a somewhat simpler one. In the field of nursing, there are different tiers of nurses. Even though each separate nursing license requires a specific degree, nurses in general work hard to pinpoint and safeguard the needs of patients. By separating nursing's license into three separate categories, such as licensed practical nurse, registered nurse, and nurse practitioner, it is easy to establish the job duties of each position and find the correct fit. So again, the common thread that's going to run through this paper is that regardless of the type of nursing, they pinpoint and safeguard the needs of patients. We also see that it's going to really talk about the licensing requirements of each of them because they have separate licenses and separate categories. Job duties are also going to be mentioned. So if we were to look at the paper, we would see the first paragraph. Licensed practical nurses provide direct patient care by monitoring vital statistics such as blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen levels, and temperature. So there are specifics there that you really don't need in your topic sentence, but at least we know in that paragraph they're going to talk about blood pressure, heart rate, and some of the monitoring vital statistics that a LPN does. The last sentence of that paragraph transitions again nicely. Even though some licensed practical nurses are employed in hospitals, most hospitals require nurses to have a registered nursing license. There are programs to transition from being a licensed practical nurse into becoming a registered nurse. And you can see here at the top, we go from licensed practical nurse to registered nurse. So take a moment to think about what I just talked about. Look at the examples. I'm going to leave the highlighting for you so that you can look at it. And I want you to really concentrate on a couple things in this paper. Number one, watch your grammar in terms of agreement and run-on sentences and fragments, because this was an issue for most in the last paper. In addition, I also want you to watch your comma usage. Since we've talked about sentence faults, we've talked about commas, and you've learned about pronouns, I really want you to make sure that these are in good condition. Lastly, watch your transitions. So I really want you to work on good paragraph structure in this essay, a good topic sentence, internal transitions, so use words such as additionally, moreover, or in addition to, furthermore, next, etc. And then, of course, you want to have a general conclusion, a general concluding sentence that refers back to the topic. And then you want to transition into the next section. And you can do it each of the different ways that we have in this paper. So I hope this gives you a little bit more, some concrete examples of how to work the paragraphs, how to really structure the introduction of the paper, and to work on the transitions throughout this. Each time I'd like to see your writing get better, because that is the purpose of this course. And I will be looking at your citations and the references. These are all graded separately for this paper, so you want to try to know APA as well as possible.